Hello and welcome to Budgeting 101. My name is Janice Nottenkamper and I work in UAMS Student Loan Debt Management, which is a part of Student Financial Services. So I work with students in planning financially for their education, for looking at student loans and determining how much they need to borrow in student loans for their education, and also making a budget, making a plan, looking at student loan repayment options and public service loan forgiveness. So let's go ahead and get started. Plan your work and work your plan. That's an old saying that I've heard for many years. I don't know who to credit with that, but it's an important part of my life in accomplishing goals, whether it be financial success, career success, or even academic success. And when you plan your work and work your plan, it helps you to become organized and ultimately it leads to success. So I think it's a really important mantra that I carry throughout my life. So I'm going to share that with you guys today. We're going to talk about budgeting, and a budget is really just a roadmap to financial wellness, and this presentation is really designed for those that have never budgeted. And so, as I said, it's Budgeting 101, so it's just really breaking it down and making it simple. So it's just a spending plan. And so I know, spending doesn't seem to go with budgeting, but it is. It's a spending plan, and it helps you to figure out what you're going to be spending your money on. It helps you to keep your spending in check so that you're controlling what you're spending as well and what you're spending it on. And it helps you to keep your savings on track for the future, whether it be the immediate future or long-term goals such as retirement. So really it is just a map to get to a goal. So why is it good to budget? And I'm one of those people that I always want to know the why. Why do I need to do this? Why do I need to do that? Why is it important? And so I'm going to tell you a few things about why it's good to budget. First of all, it helps you to keep your eye on the prize. So whatever that prize might be, it helps you to keep going toward the future, focusing on the future. It helps you to manage those short-term goals and long-term goals for financial success. So, maybe you have a short-term goal to pay off credit card debt or create an emergency fund, or maybe you want to buy a home and you want to get that down payment together. So you've got to start somewhere. So you got to plan your work. So it helps you to map things out, and it's good to write goals down. So that helps you to hopefully achieve those goals. So you can think about them in your mind, but it's really important that you write them down and map them out and organize them. And by doing so, it'll help you to save money, track your progress. You can save for, it might be a trip or a car, or as I was saying earlier, getting that first home. I mean, that's the American dream. And it helps those dreams become reality when you are budgeting and managing those goals. So with budgeting, you can avoid spending money you don't have. And I know that sounds kind of odd, like, well, how can I spend money that I don't have? But people do it every day. So I'll give you some examples. First of all, if you'll budget, if you'll make a plan for your money, then it'll keep you from using credit cards. Have you ever been in a situation where it's third week of the month before we get paid and gee, all of a sudden I don't have any money to go to the grocery store. So I guess I'll whip out that credit card and use it at the grocery store. Or, I want to go out to eat with my friends and I'm just going to use my credit card because I've run out of money because I didn't realize that I'd spent so much. And, it'll keep you, if you'll budget, it'll keep you from having overdraft fees at the bank. So that can be very devastating if you were to make an error in your bank account and you had no emergency fund, no cushion, and then all of a sudden you get 3 or 4 overdraft fees and you're short in your checking account, and now what? Then you pull that credit card out again, or maybe you even borrow money from a family member, and you've got to pay that back at some point. So um, if you'll make a budget and plan, you won't have that kind of a situation. And you'll be prepared for those emergencies. And there's always a good feeling associated with being prepared for an emergency. We never know when those emergencies are going to come up, but if you've been budgeting and planning, then you'll have money set aside when that emergency does arise. And we talked about emergencies and all these things, spending money that you don't have. And if you'll make a plan, if you'll make that spending plan, that budget or that spending plan will decrease your anxiety, because you will be more prepared for the unexpected. So it really does decrease your anxiety. It's like a little anti-anxiety drug for your finances. And when you budget, that's going to help you plan for retirement. And so you'll be in a better position when you get ready to retire. Maybe you'll get to retire earlier because you have planned well and planned in advance. And it's always a great idea to start as early as possible in planning for retirement. It'll help you create awareness. And we hear, the words financial awareness, but it is really important to know where you're spending your money, because you can't make changes or change behavior until you know what's happening and maybe some of the bad habits that you might have. Maybe you go out to eat, twice a day, 5 days a week. And, if you realized that you were doing that and realized how much money you were actually spending on that, it might be a catalyst to not do that, maybe not spend as much. And so again, it'll help decrease some anxiety because you understand where your money's going. And with a budget, it forces you to look at those spending habits. It's just like getting on the scale. We don't want to do that either. But if you'll drill down and see where you're spending your money, perhaps you could make some changes, just small changes, to be a better steward of your money that you're working so hard for. So look at those habits and see where you can make some changes. You're not going to do a 360 and immediately change overnight, but we're all a work in progress. And over time, you can change those habits to where they will be more beneficial for you. Maybe you go out once or twice a week to eat instead of every day. And then you plan for it. So again, then you're not anxious and worried about the end of the month and I don't have any money and I'm going to turn to a credit card and I hate using the credit card, and it just becomes a vicious cycle. And when you are not, when you are planning and budgeting, then you're not staying awake at night and being worried about how you are going to meet all your responsibilities and pay those bills. So again, a little anti-anxiety drug for your finances. And when you're planning and focusing on your spending habits and thinking about things and ways to improve, then you'll be able to build wealth and not just be worried about trying to put out fires, but actually building wealth and creating some financial freedom. So I promise it'll decrease your anxiety. So where do you start? And oftentimes that's the most difficult part of doing anything, is the beginning. And so when you plan your budget, you want to start out by putting it on paper. And I use paper in quotes kind of loosely, but it's important to put the numbers, on paper, whether it's an Excel spreadsheet or a budgeting app or a banking app. You want to be able to see, here's what I'm really spending. And so many people say, oh my gosh, when I work with them, it's so nice to see all of this so that now I can make a plan and work my plan. When you're planning your budget, be honest. And be realistic with yourself. If you know that you like to go get a coffee, and coffee is an example I use a lot just because I like coffee and I like to get a coffee occasionally, but be honest with yourself and say, okay, I know I want to do these things. These are my guilty pleasures. These are things that are important to me. Well, plan for them in your budget so you can continue to enjoy those. But be realistic. Don't, say, well, I want to go do this all of the time because I really enjoy it. But be realistic and be honest with yourself and plan for the things that you do enjoy. Maybe you like working out at a gym, so plan for that in the budget. And when you are planning that budget, don't forget the little small reoccurring debits that we have. Maybe it's a Spotify or some sort of a streaming account that you have, or maybe that Amazon Prime membership that you pay once a month, or maybe it's the personal property taxes that you pay once a year. So don't forget about capturing all those expenses when you're planning your budget. And first time out, you're not going to be perfect. Forgive yourself if you've not captured everything, but keep doing this as you will finally hone those skills and become better at your budget. I would encourage you to use a budgeting tool that works for you. Don't use one that is not friendly to you. So if I say, here's your Excel spreadsheet with your budget, and you have no idea how to use Excel, that's not a good budgeting tool for you. So now I will say an Excel spreadsheet works great for some people. Some people like a budgeting app, as I said, that does a little bit more of the work for you. So again, think about, tailor that to what works for you. So talking about those budgeting tools, here are some different options. If Excel is your thing, Microsoft Office has some really great Excel templates, and they put everything in one place. Why reinvent the wheel if it's already there for you? So go out to Excel and do some searches to see which template might work best for you, and then get started with that. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau even recommends using an Excel spreadsheet as a good way to build a budget. So that's one place that you can check out. Google Sheets also has a good gallery with templates for budgeting. Some are monthly, some are yearly. So that would be another place that you can check. And then some people really like budgeting apps because, as I said earlier, it does a lot of the work for you. Mint is a good one. that I know a lot of my students use. Every Dollar is another one. That's Rachel Cruz's budgeting app. She's the daughter of Dave Ramsey. So you might check hers out. And then another one, You Need a Budget, YNAB. So those are some of the top budgeting apps that people are currently using. And, you know, of course, you can always just use pen and paper. There's nothing wrong with that. Might be a little bit more labor intensive, but if something more automated is not your jam, then I would definitely use pen and paper. Use, you know, so that you're doing something. And if you are going to do pen and paper, I would get a notebook so that you can track from month to month what your spending is. So here's an example of the spreadsheet that I use when I work with people here in my office. And so I break it down with, you know, the four walls first. You know, you've got your mortgage or your rent, and that's going to be a fixed cost, so you know what that's going to be every month. Utilities, you know, you'll have to estimate those, and as you're planning this budget, you can go back and look at, say, the last 3 months of expenses in your bank account to see what the numbers were, because oftentimes utilities are kind of a difficult one to estimate if you're just starting to budget and you don't really know how to do this. Food, household supplies, and toiletries, that's another one that people say, ooh, I really didn't know what to put for this. So go back into your bank account, sort your bank account alphabetically, and use some parameters, maybe the last 3 months, the last, 90 days, and add up all your entries to see what you spent at the grocery store. And then take an average and plug that number in. Gasoline, you've got to have gas to get back and forth to work. So again, that's another one of those things that people go, ooh, I really don't know what I'm spending. So you'll need to go back into your bank account to figure out maybe what you've spent over the last few months. Then you've got your fixed expenses. You know, maybe you've got a credit card or a student loan, a phone bill that's always the same, or Wi-Fi, things of that nature. I always plug in a miscellaneous category because, you know, you're always going to have some miscellaneous things come up. And if you don't have anything that month, you can set that $100 aside for when you do have something come up as sort of a sinking fund so that you've got that money there when you do need it. Dining out entertainment is another category that people have trouble trying to estimate. So this is a time when you might say to yourself, okay, I'm going to go out, you know, once a week for a nice dinner, or twice a month, whatever it is that you enjoy doing. You'll see I've also got savings included in the monthly budget. And some people like to include even like a gift fund or a travel fund so that you're setting aside money each month in preparation for a trip, so that, guess what, you're not putting it on that credit card when you do take a little trip. So those are just some examples of the spreadsheet that I use. And in the column next to the estimated monthly expenses, you can plug in your actuals and compare. Well, how did I fare for the previous month? Were my estimates correct, or, you know, did I overestimate? Did I underestimate? So a good tool to use. And that's how you're going to work your budget, is to actually monitor your spending. So you've got to see what's, you know, you can make the plan all day long, you can put it on your desktop, but you've got to see what you've actually spent for the month and see how it compares. So I would really encourage you to carve out a little bit of time each month or each week, whatever works best for you, to pay attention to what you're doing. And another way to work the budget is to automate bills. And I say responsibly because for some people, automating bills is a little bit scary, and I understand that, but you might start out with one or two things and automate those and see how you feel, what your comfort level is. For instance, if you have a student loan payment, you'll save 1/4 of a point of an interest rate reduction by doing an auto draft, by automating that student loan payment each month. So, and depending on what your student loan debt is, if you've got $200,000 in debt, that can be a considerable savings. So I would encourage you to try that with one or two things and see how it goes. And then if you're comfortable with that, you can do more automation. By doing that, it saves you some time, saves you some stress. You're not having to think, oh, I've got to pay this on time. I've got to hurry and get this done. Or, gee, I forgot to make this payment. Now I have a late fee. And, we can't talk about a budget without talking about that 4-letter word, debt. So, as you're planning your budget, you want to pay down debt and get rid of debt. And remember with your budget that, you're going to have different priorities. So, each month it might be a little bit different, or each year it might be a little bit different. And as you're working that budget, plan for those little splurges. So, when you do want to do something fun, that they won't be so hard on the budget because you've planned ahead. It's like I was saying with the trip fund or the gift fund. That's a great way to plan ahead for those little splurges, those little guilty pleasures. Not only can you automate bills, but it's a great idea to automate your savings so that you're not even having to think about it or take action. You're automatically putting a designated amount from your checking account into your savings each month. And then all of a sudden, 6 months later, you'll have built up a nice little nest egg. So I think that's a great way to work your budget. And remember, set goals and reward yourself. A budget is not limiting. It actually helps you to enjoy things and plan for things. And, so set those goals. Maybe you want to buy a new car, or buy a used car, really would be better. And so set those goals, write them down. We're much more likely to achieve our goals if we put them on paper or put them on that spreadsheet that you might use. And then when you do reach those goals, reward yourself. So speaking of debt, let's talk a little bit more about how you can manage that debt. And first of all, you have to stop creating more debt if you want to pay it down. So you really want to get an emergency fund in place, because oftentimes that's the cycle. Something happens, your car breaks down, it's going to be $1,000, and you don't have the money to shell out $1,000, so you put it on a credit card, and then you just keep carrying that balance. So it's really important to get at least $1,000 in an emergency fund, so that if something comes up, you'll turn to that emergency fund and not the credit card. Pay more than the minimum payment. That sounds pretty simple, but you do want to, that's one way to attack your debt, is just pay off as much as you can each month. You can also do what's called a debt snowball. You may have heard of that from Dave Ramsey, who's a big budgeting guru. If you have multiple credit cards, so say you have 3 credit cards, pick the debt with the lowest balance and throw as much money as you can toward it while you're still making minimum monthly payments on the other debts. And once you get that smallest balance paid off, you can take the money that you're paying on it and then designate it toward the next credit card. Concentrate on that one while you're still paying the minimum on the others. And, you'll slowly but surely get those debts paid off. So you're being strategic and attacking that debt, and you'll gain momentum by picking the one with the smallest balance. And it's just like a snowball. It creates momentum and gets bigger and bigger until you've all of a sudden paid those debts off. Another way to pay down debt, so for instance, with a mortgage, it's a great idea to pay extra payments toward principal. So you make your regular monthly payment, and then you pay an extra amount and designate it towards your principal balance. And you can do that monthly. You could do like an extra $50 each month towards your mortgage, towards the principal amount on your mortgage. Or you could do one extra payment per year, or sometimes, depending on how you get paid, if you get paid every other week, there will be 2 times during the year that you'll get that extra paycheck. So you could use that extra paycheck towards your principal on your mortgage. So that's just something to think about to shorten the time that you'll be paying on your home. And automate, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but automate if you can. So, part of the drag of debt is you have to manage it, you have to think about it, you have to worry about it, you have to make sure it's on time, it's the right amount. So if you are automating, that sort of takes out that part of the equation. So back to planning your work and working your plan. First of all, you've got to get a plan for your budget. You've got to know what's coming in, what's going out, and where the money's going. So you got to monitor your spending. After you've made the plan, work it, monitor it. Pay down your debt. It's really important in the budget, and it'll make you feel so good to pay that off. And build an emergency fund. We talked about that and why it's so important to build a $1,000 emergency fund. And take control of your money. Don't let this control you, but you will be in the driver's seat if you'll build a budget, and it'll make you feel so much better. You'll be in control of your money, and you'll be working toward building a solid foundation for the future. So there are some tools to start planning and goal setting and making your money work for you. You work really hard for your money. So be a good steward of the money that you have, and believe in yourself. You can totally do this. I have a lot of people that come in and say, I know nothing about finances. I've never done this before. But tell yourself that you can do this, you can make it happen, and that you can take the steps to be successful with your money. So we all have to start somewhere. We didn't just pop out of the womb knowing all these things. So, start small, cut yourself some slack if you make a mistake. Just get back on and do it again every month till you really hone your skills at this, and you can be successful with this. So happy budgeting, everyone, and you can certainly give me a call. Here's my contact information, and I'll be happy to help you get started with things. And so have a great day.